Kesh stood transfixed, his scales bristling, his eyes wide with a mixture of reverence and horror. A nexus point. Ley lines converge. The stone corrupted. Bleeding chaos. He gestured with his staff, its bone tip pulsing faintly in response to the maelstrom. Balance shattered. Fen dying. Nilo, however, was less concerned with the Fen's health and more captivated by the raw, untamed power before him. Corrupted? Kesh, this isn't corrupted. This is pure power. Untamed, unpredictable, raw. He took a step closer to the swirling vortex, his hand almost instinctively reaching out. A jolt like static electricity coursed through him, and his own chaotic magic surged, his eyes flaring with an inner light. This feels familiar. Like my own magic, but grander, older. He felt a momentary loss of control, a brief flicker of a wild, ancient energy attempting to consume him. Before he reasserted his will, a strange sense of exhilaration washed over him. The connection between his own wild magic and this untamed force was undeniable, hinting at a larger, more ancient source for his own abilities. The air around the stone hummed with an almost audible resonance, a primal song of chaos. Kesh, witnessing Nilo's dangerous fascination, moved with renewed urgency. He thrust his staff towards the raging vortex, its bone tip glowing in a faint, steady light. He began to chant guttural words of ancient druidic magic, attempting to calm the maelstrom for traditional methods. But the raw, unbridled chaos of the ley line proved too strong, deflecting his efforts, the light from his staff flickering against the overwhelming power. He gritted his teeth, sweat beading on his scaled brow, struggling against the tempest. Nilo, seeing Kesh's futile struggle, felt an intuitive understanding blossom within him. This wasn't about control, it was about connection. He closed his eyes, extending his hand towards the vortex, not to command it, but to dance with its unpredictable flow. His own chaotic magic flared, not in a destructive burst, but in a strange, harmonious resonance with the swirling energy. He wasn't fighting the ley line. He was channeling it, redirecting its turbulent flow, not by destroying it, but by riding its wild currents. The air crackled with a symphony of merging magical energies, the roar of the vortex beginning to soften, replaced by a deep, resonant hum. With Nilo instinctively channeling the chaotic energy, Kesh found a new opening. The wild magic, no longer actively fighting his efforts, became a pliable current. He plunged his staff into the cracked standing stone, the sliver of God's bone within its tips radiating a pure grounding light. He channeled his druidic abilities not to suppress the wild magic, but to guide it, to mend the fractured ley line. Nilo, his body humming with redirected energy, felt the turbulent flow within him become more manageable, the chaotic surges less erratic. Together, their disparate magics intertwined, Nilo's wild channeling and Kesh's grounding druidic power, creating a strange, powerful synergy. Slowly, painstakingly, the swirling vortex began to subside, the raw, bleeding magic receding, its vibrant hues softening into a more natural, almost verdant glow. The stone cracks began to knit together, not fully healed, but stabilized, no longer bleeding raw essence. The roaring tempest quieted, replaced by a soft, resonant thrum that permitted the very air of the witch's circle. A profound silence descended upon the witch's circle, broken only by the gentle lapping of water against the moss-laden stones. The fen, though still cloaked in its characteristic mist, felt lighter, less oppressive. The chaotic hum that had plagued them for so long had finally subsided, replaced by a faint, almost imperceptible thrum that resonated from Kesh's gourd, now a gentle, soothing pulse. They stood before the standing stone, now stable, its glow a soft, steady pulse rather than a frantic throb. The warped crystals that littered the ground around it seemed less menacing, their erratic glow softened to a muted shimmer. Nilo, his breathing slowly returning to normal, felt the lingering echoes of the raw magic within him, a strange, exhilarating energy that felt less like a burden and more like a profound connection. He looked at Kesh, a new light in his eyes. Kesh, his face unbearable, but his movements calmer, ran a hand over the surface of the stone, feeling the restored, albeit fragile, balance. He closed his eyes, breathing in the renewed air of the fen, a deep, contented sigh escaping him. The silence stretched between them, a shared understanding settling over the witch's circle. Nilo, breaking the quiet, ran a hand through his perpetually messy hair. Right. Well, that was something. Never thought I'd be saving a swamp with a lizard person. And certainly never thought my wild side would be useful for anything but causing trouble. He looked at the standing stone, then at his own hand, a flicker of wonder in his eyes. This wild magic, it's not just a curse, is it? It's connected to all this, to the world, and to something else. His thoughts drifted to his masked benefactor, a new, intriguing connection forming in his mind. I still need to find them, figure out what they want from me. But maybe this means something more. Kesh, his gaze steady, met Nilo's. Chaos has its place. Balance is not always stillness. Sometimes controlled chaos is needed. He looked at the halfling, seeing past the charming facade, glimpsing the raw, untamed spirit that had unexpectedly helped restore the fen. You are more than trickery, Nilo. Your spirit echoes the wild. The bone in my staff, it hums with the memory of the corrupted line. A new purpose, perhaps. A quiet, unspoken bond had formed between them, forged in the heart of the mire. They departed the witch's circle, the fen feeling subtly different, less threatening, and more alive. The mist, though still present, seemed to glow with a softer light, and the occasional croak of an unseen creature held less menace and more natural rhythm of the marsh. Nilo stopped at the edge of the sunken fen, looking back at the shrouded trees. Well, Kesh, this has been an experience. I suppose I owe you one, or at least I owe this fen a clean bill of health. Never thought I'd add swamp healer to my resume. He pulled out a coin, flipping it idly. Still, the road calls. New marks, new adventures, new aliases. He paused, a thoughtful expression on his face. Though perhaps the Fen Walker has a nice ring to it now. Kesh simply nodded, his scaled head tilted slightly. Balance restored. For now, the Fen remembers, as do I. He looked out across the fen, his gaze distant, as if seeing beyond the mist for the wider world. My purpose, deeper than this mire. The upright races need understanding. Perhaps my path extends beyond the fen's edge. He turned his stoic form, silhouetted against the ethereal glow of the fen. The unspoken question hung in the air. Would their paths intertwine again? The newly restored fen held its secrets, but the horizon, for both of them, held new questions and untold adventures. Thank you, truly, for joining me on this unforgettable adventure. Your presence has made the journey all the more meaningful. These stories take time, they take heart, and if they meant something to you, even a little, I'd be honored if you'd help me tell a future one. I'm building this forge by hand, story by story, ember by ember, and your support helps to keep the fire alive. You made it to the end. Let's see where the path leads next. Until we meet again, brave traveler, may your path be clear and your heart ever bold.